Hello, people. How yous doing tonight? Good to see yous. I see already there's a few people in chat. Andracci and Axe Battler. It's a new person. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. This is just some research I'm following up from my Celtic stuff, my Scythian, and I just think it's a waste of research. Sometimes I can sit for like half a day going down these rabbit holes, research, and I can just shut all my windows and turn my computer off and just forget about it for weeks and then go back to it weeks later. So this is kind of a way for myself to record what I've been looking at, and I can go back on it. And if you are interested, fair enough. I'm not really doing it for the people. This is more of a selfish kind of journey. But if you can relate to it and have interest in it, because to be honest, guys, this genealogy thing, I don't really get much interest from the people in my life around me. And no one's really interested about their past or their history or who they are, their journey to this place where we are now. And I find it fascinating. I do. And I keep going back to it. I don't know what it is, but I keep going back. And this might interest some of the Scottish, Irish, Celtic viewers. It might interest the British as well. Because thumbs up, Andracci, because being British isn't all what it's cracked up to be. Britain is a mongrel nation. It's been conquered so many times. The Romans, then you've got the Anglo-Saxons, who were a Germanic tribe, and then you had the Vikings, who were Danish and Norwegian. And you had the Gaels. The Gaels never get mentioned, but the Gaels were foreigners. The Gaels came into Britain. I think the Gaels sneaked into Britain through the back door from Ireland. The Romans tried to go straight through France, where I think the Gaels, they came from Scythia, but I think they went to Spain, Portugal, France, and then went right round to England, to Ireland, then Scotland. So the Gaels and the Picts of Scotland are two different Celtic tribes. A lot of people think that Gaelic is the indigenous language is Scotland, but Gaelic is a foreign language to Scotland. Scotland used to be known as Pictland, and they were a Celtic tribe. They were definitely a Celtic tribe, but they were Brythonic. They spoke Brythonic, more similar to the Welsh. And the fact that Britain, the whole of Britain and Ireland were Celtic. The whole islands were Celtic. And it wasn't until the Romans came over and pushed all the Britons, or the original English, to Wales, Scotland, Ireland. They ended up the Celtic nations, and England ended up mishmashy Romans, Greeks, anybody they bring over as soldiers. So English people are quite mixed. And looking at my own genealogy, I just find it fascinating that as a Scotsman, we've been conquered by the Vikings, the Normans, all the different tribes as well. And I still find it fascinating that I'm 87% from these islands, with no Viking fucking DNA, no Germanic DNA. So the Anglo-Saxons never got any of my genetics. I just find that, like, where the hell was my ancestry? Were they sitting in caves or something? So because not many people are interested in this subject, genealogy, especially like your own, like for some reason, every other nation right now, or every other race, has been celebrated. Like, celebrate your blackness, celebrate your Indianness, celebrate your Native Americanness, celebrate this, celebrate and push it and push it. But if you go into your own, people are like, oh, we're all the same, we're all the same. And it's like, no, I'm going to celebrate my culture, my genes, just as much as you guys will. So, and be proud of them as well. So I'm going to show you a quick video of a YouTuber who done his DNA. And this is, I love watching these DNA videos, guys. It's brilliant. I like seeing, because I had the same excitement. It's exciting. It's exciting to see. And sometimes it could be disappointing. A lot of people are disappointed because they heard they had maybe a German and your granddad was German, and they do the genealogy and they find out there's no German. Or I find with the Black Americans, not African Americans, because I don't think they like getting called African Americans anymore because they've never been to Africa and blah, blah, blah. So, but I find a lot of Black Americans are told down their family lines for some reason that they're Native American. They've got Native American in them. And they're so disappointed to find out that they've got no Native American, or 0.1% Native American, and like 40% European and 60% African. And the reaction is usually, I thought it was blacker. I thought it was blacker. And nobody sees that as racist, that they're not happy that they're not blacker. And a lot of them get upset. And I found out I was 97% European, and there's a 3% West Asian out there that I embrace. It's like, I thought it was exotic. I was like, ooh, 3% West Asian. So different people react differently to the genes, the DNA. But I find it fascinating, guys. And if you find it interesting, you might find this bit of research I've looked at. Anyway, guys, we're going to listen to a YouTuber first. But I'm going to go to the whole Gaels, because I think looking at this Scottish declaration of Arbroath, it looks like that they're declaring they were the Gaels. And the Gaels came and destroyed the Picts and destroyed the Britons. But that can't be true, because I'm 38% Native Briton. And Native Britain isn't Roman, Italian. Native Britain's the Celtic Britain before the Gaels even came over, before the Romans came over, before. So, it's fascinating. So we're going to watch this YouTuber, and then we're going to look at the Gael connection. And Gala, if British people are in the chat, you'll maybe know Gala Bingo. Have you heard of Gala Bingo? You never wonder where that word Gala comes from. Gala Bingo? It's like Gala. Funnily enough, the other bingo hall, big bingo hall here, it's called Mecca. Another sort of, it was connected to Islam anyway. So Gala, and there's a tradition in Scotland, not so much anymore in the city of Edinburgh, but still out in the little towns of like Newton Grange and all these little mining towns. They still have gala days. I don't know if England have them, these gala days, but they pick a king and a queen kids, and they have these floats, they have a parade, they have some kind of festival, and it looks like an old pagan festival. And I'm not sure of the roots of gala days. But this word gala, it definitely comes from the Gaels, the Gaelic culture. But anyway, we're going to have a wee look at a YouTuber. Thanks for coming in, guys. Good to see you, Test Vision, D-Truth, Rock Liver, and Dratche. Nice to see you guys. Gareth Moulton. Hey, Jed, I'd love to find out more about my past. My dad's line got traced to an illegitimate son of the Earl of Seafield. A family in Shetland too. Strange effing mix. I thought I would be more of a mix. I look at myself in the mirror and I thought, there must be a bit of African there. Come on. Look at those eyes, man. I've got darker eyes than some Africans. My lips, I've got quite full lips, so I thought there must be some African or North African or something there. There must be, but there wasn't. I was quite surprised. In the dark, I'm quite dark. I've got a ginger growth, but I'm quite dark, so I thought there'd be something more exotic, even Italian or Greek or something. But I suppose the Iberian Peninsula, I've got a 1% DNA from there, but I'm more Scottish, I'm more British than most British people, to be honest with you. Most British people, their British DNA has been wiped away with the Romans and the Anglo-Saxons, all these Germanic, Italian, Greeks coming over, and the British DNA has practically disappeared. And like I said, the original British DNA were the indigenous people of Britain, like the Celtic Welsh, the Picts, all these Celtic, and Britain, England was known as, and Albion, the whole of Britain was known as Albion. It was a Celtic nation before the Romans came. So Rome practically wiped out the English Celts, apart from Cornwall. Cornwall, are way down. And they've got lots of interesting stories, Cornwall. There's a few things connected with Glastonbury and Cornwall, the tin mines, because Cornwall was the biggest producer of tin in Europe, especially even Roman times. So there was a lot of traffic going to Cornwall. There was a lot of value in Cornwall, especially during the Bronze Age, the Iron Age. You're going to need tin from somewhere, and Cornwall and Wales. There were massive mines of tin, and there's stories of the Joseph of Arimathea turning up in Cornwall and Glastonbury and stuff like that. Interesting stuff. But anyway, I'll screen share this YouTuber. Let's see. I've forgotten how to use this. It's been that long since I've done a live stream. Screen share. Right. Here's this dude. I'll change the speaker as well so you can hear him better. I use the built-in microphone. But listen to this guy. Right, look at this dude. He looks a pretty British guy. He looks Celtic. He looks Scottish. If this dude was walking down the street in Scotland, you'd think, that's a Scotsman or an Irishman. But let's listen to this guy.
4% British. And when I first read that, I was like, whoa.
So this guy's just discovered he's 100% European, which is more than me because I'm 97%, and he's 4% British.
Then I thought about it in more depth and it became more apparent as to why that is. So only 4% British, British being England, Wales and Scotland. Okay, I'm only 4% that. But as I said, there's a reason for that and I'll explain it in a minute. And now the next one, which you're probably not that surprised about, is I'm 42% Irish. I didn't think it was going to be that high, but I already knew.
Still lower than me. I think I'm 53% Irish. I'm 30. I think I'm 37% British and 53% Irish. We'll have a look later anyway.
Already kind of knew about that because my grandparents are Irish on their side, both sides. So I knew it was going to be Irish. So just keep in your mind that the Irish are the Celts. Okay, so the Celts, right? And also here, right here, there's 3% Iberian Peninsula, right, which is Spain. But the Celts went down as far as Spain. So,
well, they either went down to Spain or they came up from Spain. This is one of the problems I'm coming across recently. Like, they keep saying that the Celts, the Gaels, the Gaelic people, they originated in Scotland and Ireland. This is where they came from. But then you've got a lot of Celtic culture coming from Austria and Hungary. And so did they spread as far as these places, or did they come from these places? This is the question.
So that might explain that as well. So we could perhaps say there's about 45% Celt. So the next one is 18% Scandinavian. So keep in your mind, Scandinavian Vikings. We talk about the Vikings. We spoke about the Vikings. They came over here and did their thing, and that makes sense as well. And second to that is 19% European, Europe West, which could also be the Vikings, but at the same time, it could also be the Anglo-Saxon influence on Britain. And finally, perhaps the most shocking, I'm 13% Italian Greek, which is kind of crazy, especially considering my noggin and my complexion. If I go anywhere near Greece, I go red very, very quickly and mumble a lot and grumble a lot as well. So yeah, that was surprising. But again, not if you put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, the British, okay, when you hear people say I'm a native of England, I'm a native of Britain, it's actually not true at all. We are a mongrel country. We are a melting pot of lots of other different European countries. That's how we are who we are today. And when I say mongrel melting pot, it sounds like negative. Well, mongrel's a negative word, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It's actually quite a positive thing, the way that, I mean, it's all turned out all right in the end, hasn't it? So let's think about it again. So 3% British. you're going to be hard pushed to actually be a true Brit in this country, right? Because we have the Celtic influence. So we have my 45% Celt, right? So they came in. And then you have what was the other one? Scandinavians. You had the Vikings. They come and mixed it all up. Now the Greek and the Italian is the Romans, right? Okay, so you've got the Romans in there as well. And finally, you've got my European, 19% European West, which again could be the Vikings, but also could be the Anglo-Saxons. So if you are a true Englishman, you're actually a mix of all of those races. And it's weird because I'm an Englishman, but I'm not an Englishman at all. I'm British, but I'm not British at all, in the sense of the pure British, the pure English way back then, okay, before all of these other races come along. I say races is the right word. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just going to use, you know what I mean, come along and just mixed it all up and we became who we are today. So that's my DNA. Quite interesting. As I said, surprising at first, but when you really tot it up.
So guys, this is your typical Brit, apparently. 4% British. And it's a big, well, to me it's a big surprise because I look at my own DNA, and like I said, I'm 50-odd% Irish, 37 or 38% British, 9% West Europe, 1% Iberian, and 3% Caucasus, West Asia, which I think is a Scythian influence with the Gaels. I think that's where my connection with the Gaels comes in. This whole, like, where, like, you wonder why or where this 3% West Asia comes in to my genealogy. I was telling my granny, and she was like, "What?" Like she hadn't a clue about this West Asian influence. So it could be my father's side or I'm not sure, but this is your standard British person because of the Romans, because of the Vikings, because of the Anglo-Saxons. So British people are quite a mix. And this is what I was looking at, guys. Right. So I was looking at the Declaration of Broth, and I've said this before, the Declaration of Broth is without doubt the most famous document in Scottish history, like the American Declaration of Independence, which is partially based on it. It is seen by many as the founding document of the Scottish nation. It was drafted on the 6th of April, 1320, a day the United States of America has declared to be Tartan Day. Right. So then I looked at this part of the declaration, and it says here, I'll read the whole lot, stated in the Declaration of Broth. Most Holy Father and Lord, we know, and from the chronicles and books of the ancients, we find that among other famous nations of our own, the Scots have been graced with widespread renown. They journeyed from Greater Scythia, which is located in Georgia, the Caucasus, by the way of the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Pillars of Hercules, which is Gibraltar. So it's through that Strait of Gibraltar between Africa and Spain, the south of Spain, and dwelt for a long course of time in Spain amongst the most savage tribes, but nowhere could they be subdued by any race, however barbarous. Thence they came 1200 years after the people of Israel crossed the Red Sea to their homes in the west, where they still live today. The Britons they first drove out, the Picts they utterly destroyed, which I don't think is true, because like I said, I've got 37% British DNA. And that's what the Picts were. They were the original Brits, and same with the Britons. And even though very often assailed by the Norwegians, which is the Vikings, the Danes, which is also the Vikings, and the English, which was the Anglo-Saxons, they took possession of that home with many victories and untold efforts. And as the historians of old time bear witness, they have held it free of all bondage ever since. In their kingdom, there have reigned 113 kings of their own royal stock, the line unbroken, a single foreigner. So like I said, guys, they claim their bloodline's not been broken, and most Scots have got Viking DNA to some degree because of the, but I don't have any at all. And they mention that the Vikings here and the English, and I don't have any Germanic, which is the English there is now. Well, Germanic, Italian. You've seen what the English are nowadays; they're a mix mash of everything. So I looked at the journey of the so-called Scythians. So here's where Scythia was, Greater Scythia, the Caucasus Mountains. And this is where they say they travel. There's a Tyrrhenian Sea here. And if you look at these places like Hungary, like you see right over that sea, then you've got Hungary. Well, Hungary, Romania, all these places have got towns called Gala. It's called Galatia or Gala somewhere. Even in Israel, there's the Galilee Sea. And this is where the Gal comes in with the Gaels. Anyway, so they've travelled across this line, Tyrrhenian Sea. Here's Apollos of Hercules down here, the bottom of Spain. Up through Spain, probably through Portugal. It's probably on the coastline they probably went. And they probably went to France as well. They probably didn't skip right over. They probably went up the coastline. I reckon they probably travelled more the coastlines back then, rather than straight over these massive oceans. I think they would stick to the land, but still. Into Ireland, then into Scotland. So you can see the countries here. We've got the Scythian influence, West Asia, but they skipped a lot because they went over the sea, the Black Sea, so they missed Turkey down there, Ankara. Even then, they probably stayed on the coastline. They probably didn't cross right over the middle. They probably went up, like stayed near the coastline. And it probably took them a while. They probably stopped, established little places, moved on. And this journey probably would have took a couple of 100 years, maybe. So we have the Scythian influence, we have the Greek, influence, the Tyrrhenian influence, then the Spanish, Portuguese, French, Irish, probably Wales as well. They probably stopped off at Wales or Ireland into Scotland. But I think this is the whole, they went round the back door. I think when the Romans were leaving or on their way out, I think the Gaels maybe came in. It could have happened beforehand. Because the Normans, they didn't come till the 10th century, like 1066. William the Conqueror came over, that French influence. But that's the path. It's the same path as what the Declaration of Arbroath says. And this is my DNA, guys. Shit. Right, this is my DNA. So this is the Scythia part. This is the West Asia part in my DNA. It's blue, this large blue bit. You can see it covers Georgia. This is meant to be Greater Scythia here. Greece. You can see the journey, the same journey you've seen in the Declaration of Arbroath. It's went the same direction. Through the Tyrrhenian Sea, Apollos of Hercules, Portugal, Spain, France, Ireland, Scotland. So to me, what they describe in the Declaration of Arbroath, the journey, is the same journey in my DNA. It's the same path. So I think there's some truth to this Declaration of Arbroath. And the Gaels, right? This might take a while, guys. Hope you're having a good night anyway. Let's have a closer look at the Gaels. The Gaels are a cultural and ethno-linguistic group native to northwestern Europe. Native to northwestern Europe. So here in Wikipedia is good for research. It's a good place to start with research. Wikipedia. I don't recommend Wikipedia for full-on research because what I like to do is start in Wikipedia and then end up finding research to debunk a lot of stuff in Wikipedia. I've already done it in the past, but it's a good place to start. But here, because it sort of scratches your curiosity, it's like native. And this is how I go on rabbit like down the rabbit hole, because they use words like native, are a cultural and ethno-linguistic group native to northwestern Europe. So they're not saying they come from Scythia or anything like this. They are associated with the Gaelic languages, a branch of the Celtic languages comprising Irish, Manx, which is Isle of Man, and Scottish Gaelic. Historically, the ethonyms Irish and Scots refer to the Gaels in general, but the scope of those nationality is today more complex. Right? It's complex, mate. Let's see, there's another thing, aye. Right, so I'll show you my results, guys. This was my DNA results. So I was 90, I'm less European than the ginger guy you just seen there. 53% Irish, so I'm more Irish than that guy, even though he's more ginger than me. I'm more Irish than him. 53%, so that's the Celtic influence. Oh, 34, I'm 34% British. So that's Celtic as well, because the Picts, the Britons, they were a proto-Celtic, but they weren't a Gaelic. The Gaelic spoke Gaelic. The British Celts, they spoke Brythonic. But like Wikipedia and all the recent, like all this stuff says, they say it's native to this island. And this is really, here's my 9% Europe West, which covers a bit of France, a bit of Belgium, Holland, places like that. I think that's the French Gael. And there's the Spain, Portugal. And then my other 3% is the Caucasus region, West Asia. So, back to the Gaels. Gaelic language and culture originated in Ireland, extended to Dalriata in western Scotland. In antiquity, the Gaels traded with the Roman Empire and also raided Roman Britain. In the Middle Ages, Gaelic culture became dominant through the rest of Scotland and the Isle of Man. So, if the Celtic and Gaels are native to Britain, they must have spread to Scythia. Or they began in Scythia and spread to Britain. It's funny because when you look at the Declaration of Arbroath, and they said they completely destroyed the Britons and the Picts, these Gaels. It's crazy to think that. Oh, I've got my train of thought there. Sorry, guys. This is why you shouldn't do live streams. Like, you should really edit it. But it's crazy. It's crazy to think. There was also some Gaelic settlements in Wales and Cornwall. In the Viking Age, small numbers of Vikings raided and settled in Gaelic lands, becoming the Norse Gaels. In the 9th century, the Scots Gaels of Dalriata merged with Pictland to form the Kingdom of Alba. Meanwhile, Gaelic Ireland was made up of several kingdoms, with the High King often claimed lordship over them. So I wonder if Ireland was the same. I wonder if Ireland had a sort of indigenous people, Irish people, before the Gaels came. And I think they have stories where they've got a few types of people living in Ireland. In the 12th century, Normans conquered parts of Ireland, while parts of Scotland became Normanised. However, Gaelic culture remained strong throughout Ireland, the Scottish Highlands, and Galloway. So that's just a quick rundown. So what places? Let's start in my own town, my own country, Gala Shields. This is just one example. Gala Shields. We have Galloway as well. We've got loads of places that begin with Gal and Gala. But I just picked the most obvious at first, Gala Shields. This is Scotland. So we've got Gala. We're going back to and this word, Gala, I think, comes from the Gaels. Ireland. We've got Galway in Ireland. It's a port. So we've got Scotland and Ireland, and this is just the influence the Gaels had on place names. Obviously, they got Normanized, Anglicized, whatever, but they still kept the original Gael part. France as well. France, if you were from France, you're known as a Gaul, and you can see here it was known as Gallia. France wasn't known as France. It used to be known as Gallia. Before being named France, the land was called Gaul. Gallia. This name continued to be used even after the beginning and the reign of the Franks kings Clovis I, Charles Martel, Pepin the Short, and Charlemagne. In fact, as long as the cultural elites of Europe used Latin predominantly, the name Gallia continued to be used alongside the name France. In English usage, the words Gaul and Gaulish are used synonymously with Latin Gallia, Gallus, and Gallicus. However, the similarity of these names is probably coincidental. The English words are borrowed from French Gaul and Gaulios. So, this is my Western Europe influence coming in. The Gauls. Galicia in Spain. Here's another place, and there's lots of places. This is right in the northern tip corner of Spain. Galicia, this area here. Same again. Gael. This is where the Gael influence came in. Located in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula, it comprises the provinces of A Coruña, Lugo, Orense, and Pontevedra, being bordered by Portugal to the south, the Spanish autonomous communities of Castile and Leon, and Asturias to the east, the Atlantic Ocean to the west, and the Cantabrian Sea to the north. The population of 2 million as a total area of blah, blah, blah. Galicia's over coastline, including the offshore islands, blah, blah, blah. The area now called Galicia was first inhabited by humans during the Middle Paleolithic period, and it takes its name from the Galiciae, the Celtic people living north of the Douro River during the last millennium BC, a region largely coincidental with that of the Iron Age. So we've Gaelic people in Spain, France, Ireland, Scotland. And they say in Wikipedia the Gaels started in Ireland or Scotland. So they either spread from the British Isles to these places, or they spread from these places to the British Isles. It's either or either. And this is my main conundrum, guys, because the name Gael or Gaelic means foreigner. It means foreigner. And it's funnily enough, I think the only place I didn't find Gal and a place name called Gal was actually in Georgia, because I suppose if they're from Scythia, they wouldn't be foreigners. You find a lot of rivers beginning with the letter D, where the Celtic people settled. The last millennium BC, in a region largely coincidental with that of the Iron Age local. See, it's coincidental. Everything's coincidental. Galatia was incorporated into the Roman Empire at the end of the Cantabrian Wars in 19 BC and was made a Roman province in the 3rd century. The Germanic Suebi established a kingdom with its capital in Braga, Portugal. This kingdom was incorporated into that of the Visigoths. So there's your Spanish Gaels. So we've had Scotland, Ireland, France, Spain. Where else can we go? Galatai. Galatai, also known by other alternative names, is the capital city of Galatai County in the historical region of Moldavia, eastern Romania. Galatai is a port town on the Danube River. And this Danube River, guys, apparently one of the tribes of the Israels, the lost tribes, tribe of Dan, Israelite tribe called Dan, set up that named that river, the Danube River. Same with Denmark. Denmark, it was meant to be set up by the Dan tribe. Galatai is a major blah, blah, blah. Let's see what it says. Ancient origins. Well, let's look at the name. The name Galatai is derived from the Cuman word, Galat, This word is borrowed from the Arabic word fortress. Other etymologies have been suggested, such as Serbian Gallic. However, the Gallic root appears in nearby toponyms, some of which show clearly a Cuman origin. For example, Galetiu Lake, which is a typical Cuman. Why not, instead of all this garbage about Arabic and all that, why not just say it's from the Gaels, from the Celtic culture? Ancient origins. Archaeological evidence points to occupation of the region in the Neolithic period. For example, northwest of the town of Galatai on the eastern shores of the Molina Marshes, fragments of ceramic type Stociani Aldeni, stylex and tools made of bone have been found. A stone scepter from the late Bronze Age belonging to the Caucuses culture was found in the marshes southern bank. So here, they're not connecting Gala with the Gaels, but this is a Gaelic influence. This is the Gaels. The Celtic culture has been through Romania as well. Here's another one. Turkey, Galatia. Ancient Galatia was an area in the highlands of central Anatolia in modern-day Turkey. Galatia was named for the immigrant Gauls from Thrace, who settled here and became its ruling caste in the 3rd century BC, following the Gallic invasion of the Balkans in 279 BC. It's been called the Gallia of the East. Roman writers calling its inhabitants Galli, Gauls or Celts. So in Turkey, they're saying that this is related to the Gaels, but in Romania, they're saying it's not. So here we go, Celtic Galatia. You see in France, seeing something of a Hellenized savage in the Galatians, Francis Bacon and other Renaissance writers called inhabitants Gallo-Greci, or Gauls, settled amongst the Greeks. And the country Gallo-Greca has had the 3rd century AD Latin historian Justin. The more usual term in antiquity is Hellenogalatai, or Diodorus Siculus, Bibliotheca Historica, volume 32, 5, and a passage that is translated, and were called Gallo-Greci because of the connection with the Greeks, identifying Galatia in the Greek East as opposed to Gallia in the West. So there's the Greek connection. And lastly, guys, let's go to the Galilee. Upper Galilee and Lower Galilee. And guess what this is? This is in the Middle East. This is Israel. Jesus apparently walked along the Sea of Galilee, Gal. And to me, either the Celts came from these regions and immigrated over to Britain, or they came from Britain over to these regions. Galilee is a region in northern Israel. The term Galilee traditionally refers to the mountainous part divided into Upper Galilee and Lower Galilee. In the modern common usage, Galilee refers to all of the area that is beyond Mount Carmel to the northeast, extending from Dan to the north at the base of Mount Hermon. Remember the last Dan we seen was the Danube River, and that was the Romanian one. Where was it? Was it that one? Romania, Danube River, Galatai, Danube, and then Galilee, extending from Dan, as the tribe of Dan established a city at the base of Mount Hermon. So, like I said, there's the Gal, once again, the Gael influence on the place names. Interesting stuff, guys. And this was just an article that Gael, a Gaelic word meaning strangers or foreigners. For example, Donegal, fortress of the foreigners. Note that Galway is not an example of this word. It translates to something like a port at some small island. The word Gaelic itself means foreigners because it originates from the language of pre-Celtic peoples who referred to the Celts as foreigners or Gaels. So the Britons and the Picts were the indigenous people of Britain. the Gaels came in as a invading tribe, and they came from afar. And that's I think the story, or that's what it was. Remember when I lost my train of thought earlier, guys? I've remembered it. When you hear the Bible story of Esau and Isaac, and they're squabbling over the birthright, Abraham, because Esau was born first, so he was the eldest, and he had the birthright, and he had the blessings. Well, he sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew, and then Jacob tricked Abraham. It was Abraham into giving him the blessings as well. And it's almost Jacob was the farmer, and Esau was a hunter-gatherer. He was ginger. Apparently, Esau was ruddy. He was red in the Bible, and he was a hunter-gatherer, and he was a man's man. And apparently, he was favored. He was favored over Jacob because he was a good person. And Jacob apparently was a farmer, like not a farmer, but a sheep herder. Like instead of hunting and gathering, he was herding his sheep. He was and it was Esau and Jacob. It was almost like the story of the hunter-gatherers meeting the European farmers, when the European farmers met the hunter-gatherers. It's like they're the same people, but one's more advanced in the technology than another, and they practically merge with them. And I think that could be almost like a story of that. The Esau selling his birthright could be like the hunter-gatherers giving over their land to the farmers, the European farmers. It's interesting. And same with the Exodus, the lost tribes of Israel. It could just mean, it could be a story of immigration of these Celts, of these Gaels. So these Hebrews or Israelites are really Celtic tribes from Greater Scythia. And like I've shown you guys, I think I could have a genetic connection with it all. This was quite a new article. I think this is the Irish Times, Monday, March the 26th, 2018. I found this by the Irish Times. It's called The Caucasus Connection. And this was an article by it's not got the journalist, but I'll read it out anyway. Deep in the Caucasus Mountains of southern Russia, near war-torn Chechnya, a tribe known as the Ossetians share many cultural and social similarities with the Irish. Belinda Jackson visits the homeland of this ancient race who may be the original Celts. I stare at the dead woman's hairpin. Was she my cousin? The pin is certainly most familiar. It's two concentric Celtic spirals, like anything you'd buy from the hawkers on O'Connell Street Bridge, even though the pin is now 2,100 years old, and I'm looking at it in a remote town in southern Russia, just 50 miles from Chechnya, the trail that may link us not yet cold. But we are cousins, insists Larissa, and learning of my Irish roots. Larissa is Ossetian, one of the ancient tribe that lived in the soaring Caucasus Mountains on the Russian-Georgian border for thousands of years. They are, she maintains, the original Celts. Her assertion of kinship follows the theory that modern-day Ossetians are a mix of warlike, horse-mad Scythians and another, more peaceful tribe, the Samaritan Alans, who later drifted or were thrust westward, their blood mingling with that of the Celts. It is a theory supported by some of the big names of Celtic history, such as Gerard Herm, author of the seminal work The Celts, the Celtic art writers Lloyd and Jennifer Lang. The texts tell from the 7th century BC, Scythian horsemen pushed out from the Central Asian strongholds, leaving, as their calling card, some particular gruesome practices echoed later in Julius Caesar's commentaries on the Celts, including tearing off the bloody heads of the defeated enemies, thus ensnaring their strength as foe lifeblood abed. 4 centuries later, the Scythians were forced further west by the mysterious Samaritans, who also temporarily halted in the Caucasus, pausing to mix with the Scythians to become the forefathers of today's Ossetians, before continuing their westward pilgrimage in the Great Migration of Peoples, a journey which involved brawling with the Roman Empire and founding Alani states as far afield as Orleans in France and North Africa. From this ancient history, the Scythians survived in the mountain isolation, their distinct identity and Indo-Iranian language intact, but its influence traceable. In Vladikavkaz, the capital state of North Ossetia, Larissa speaks Russian as well as a native Ossetian, the tongue of our Scythian forebears, which then first discovered in 341 AD, used the Greek alphabet and has since alternated between the Latin and Cyrillic alphabets. There are two dialects, Digor and the more popular Iran, perhaps a corruption of the older name of the Indo-Iranian peoples. Aryan, its words finding their way into our tongues. For example, she is Ossetian, where Don is a word for water. Don. The Russian river Don flows into the Black Sea. London translates as Stainwater and Croydon, south of the city where Celtic tribes were known to have lived, means mill on water. The traditional Ossetian names of Fatima and Alan can be heard on the streets of both Dublin and Vladikavkaz today. These Ossetian words possibly entered the British Isles as the Alani, who learned from the Huns their tradition of binding their children's skulls to produce a deformed egg-shaped head, paid for their warrior ways by enslavement to the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who vanquished them, with the result that some migrated to northern England. It is estimated that there are 600,000 people of this tiny ancient race living in the former USSR today, spread on either side of the Russian-Georgian border. While Turkey also has a small Ossetian population, they are renowned in archaeological circles for their skilled, intricate metal jewellery and weaponry, striking in its stylized depiction of animals. They learned their Scythian ancestors' reverence of horses, another trait shared with Celts, and in the first millennium BC, garnished belt buckles with the form of a beloved horse in a full gallop, or lavish stags' heads across a breastpin in the form of a battle axe, the sort of designs that we've led some historians to declare that they birthed medieval animal-based heraldry. Another buckle recalls a hunting scene. Dogs are bringing down a stag, its antlers curled in a complicated geometric knot. It is the same elegant mathematical series of swirls and curves that you see later tattooed around a young Ossetian patriot's slim wrist, although at first I mistook her for a devotee of Irish design. So this just continues with the whole Caucasus connection. I've known this is the first time I've read it, guys. I just found it. I thought that would be a nice article to end it. So, got anything else here? No. So guys, it was just good to get that off my chest. It was good to get that off my chest. I go through all this research and I even sit in Google Earth. I was going through Google Earth looking at all the different places, trying to find all the Gaels, because Gal is a strong word here. It's used all the time and we don't really know the meaning behind it. Gala bingo and gala days and stuff like that. Galway, and Gala shields. There's lots of places with this Gal influence. So it was good for me to get this down without having to edit it, guys, because it takes a lot editing. I'm glad these are all here. The horse wearing costume, survivor's costume. Jesus. Anyway, guys, I'm probably going to tune in to VB. He's probably on tonight. He's probably just starting. But the whole genealogy thing with the Irish, the Scottish, the French, the West Asia thing for me, and the parallels it has with the declaration of a broth, and when you look at the place names, the Celtic influence all the way through Europe, right to the Middle East. Even Jesus walked along a sea called the Galilee. You know what I mean? It's so obvious. It's so bloody obvious. The question is now, did the Celts spread from Scotland and Ireland through to Greater Scythia, or did they go the other way? Or was it a series of back and forths? Maybe the Pictish people came from Greater Scythia, and then the Gaels came from Greater Scythia, but a few hundred years later and totally changed. Like they're the same sort of stock of people, but they've got differences, probably different language as well. And they're boasting in the declaration of both about wiping out the Britons and the Picts, whereas the Briton and the Picts might be their distant brothers, ancestors. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it at that. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'm going to enjoy it. I'll look back on it and I continue my research, looking at it. Have a good night, guys. Take care. And I'll speak to you all very soon.